And it's literally as funny as it is, not funny, haha, funny, but
Yeah.
odd.
Ironic.
You literally have to brainwash yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
You
completely. It's all
literally
mindset.
have to
Yeah.
brainwash yourself, indoctrinate yourself. You're up against XYZ years of preconceived notions and stories you were told, and you literally have to use brainwashing techniques
Yeah. Yeah.
to help until you believe it.
Yeah. And then you have those sparks of energy or sparks where it flows. And I would be second guessing, like, can I do this and how hard it is? And I don't know the judges and there's so many legal forms and I got to learn so much. But then I would get on the phone with a daughter who was talking about her mom. And it was like, I'm like, this is where I belong. So even if you spend like 90% of your day, you feel like you're flailing around, you're going to have that 10% or whatever. And then hopefully it becomes your 90%, that it just flows. And you're just like, this is where I belong. I built this like nest for myself and this is where I belong.
Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams, and were brave enough to be that person.
Welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm so excited. I should warn people about being in a space with you and I when we get going, but
A lot of fun.
We're fun. I have someone I've known for quite some time. I met you pretty much at the beginning of launching my original entrepreneurial journey. We've worked together. We've crossed paths again. I am so excited to share your story, what you've learned along the way, and then also what you do for your clients. So I'm very excited to introduce the world, my audience, to Kate Curler. And why don't you give everybody a more formal introduction of who you are and what it is that you do for a living?
So what I do, my name is Kate Curler, and I have a law firm called the Law Office of Kate Curler, which is not very unique, but I tend to think that what I do is pretty unique. What happened is I took my personal experience of helping my parents navigate when they got sick, hospitals, nursing homes, how to come up with a plan. Do you have the right paperwork? Who are the right experts and resources to get to? Went through that experience myself and realized that there were huge gaps in the market and I reached out to elder law attorneys and I wasn't getting the answers or support that I needed. And I started my own firm. It's growing and I'm very excited about that. Started my own firm providing the legal services and became kind of the lawyer that I wish I would have had about 10 years ago when I had to go through this journey myself.
Well, and what I love about because I know your story and I know what you do for a living. It's so much going on, right? So which directions can we go? People don't realize what resources are available until they're in the place where they need those resources, right? So all of those of us who are in that marketplace, in the senior care marketplace, felt like we were screaming from the rooftops and nobody was listening. And yet, once you're in that place, you need so many resources. And what you realized, what's so unique and like the business lesson here is when you can take your personal experience and your credentials, you were already a lawyer.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And combine that when you see this gap in the market. And like you said, there's a lot of estate planning attorneys out there. There's a lot of elder law attorneys out there. They perform an extremely valuable role. But what I know that you do differently is you use the strength of a lawyer, the credentials of a lawyer, the education of a lawyer, to be an advocate for your clients in the moment, right? Not planning for the future, and that was a huge gap.
Well, it's a huge value add too. I mean, in the beginning, I mean, quite frankly, I had this idea, but I didn't have a lot of clients. It is what it is. I have a lot of time. But what I did, and that's where we ended up meeting, is I spent the first little while networking, meeting everybody I could and getting people's cell phone numbers and finding out what they did and hearing their stories and finding the best people. And so now I'm in this really great place where, my clients, as far as I'm concerned, get the VIP, which means you call me and you don't know what to do about your mom who's in the hospital or in a nursing home, and you got some legal forms or even not legal forms. You just have a mess that you're trying to figure out. I'm going to get you somebody's cell phone number, and I'm going to hopefully get you somebody who'll talk to you in the next couple hours, because I know what it's like to be a caregiver daughter and try to navigate this myself. And you need answers, and you need them quickly. Stuff moves really fast.
Yeah. Well, so tell me though, because the scary part, the jumping off the cliff part for you was leaving an established practice to go out, not just go out on your own, but go out on your own with an idea that it wasn't really a proven concept. You weren't following a path.
No, I mean, it was more like I was pushed. So this is what happens for me.
I say that all the time. The end result is the same. You're falling off a cliff. You might have jumped, you might have gotten pushed, but the end result is the same. You are falling off the cliff.
But for so many American caregivers, the stresses of being a caregiver, and I needed time off. I had one mom that was sick, and I had a father in ICU, and I couldn't come back to work. So I lost my job. And then I had a lot of time to kind of reach out to resources, a lot of time to think. And I mean, it wasn't proven. I took pretty much my life savings, which at the time was enough to support me for 6 months. And people kept saying it's going to take you 2 years to build a network and build a business. I'm like, I don't have 2 years. I have 6 months. But I think it's also for me, it was kind of the philosophy of burn the boats. I knew I didn't want to do anything else. Like I was a prosecutor. I had done a little bit of real estate law. I'd done divorce law, areas of law that I really I didn't enjoy them as much as I enjoyed doing this. And I didn't like them as much as I liked doing this. So I knew what I didn't want to do. And I was very clear with myself that there's no plan B. I'm not going to look for a job. I'm not going to put my resume together. I'm not going to put it out there to the universe or to anybody that I'm talking to that I want to go join a firm or look for a job. I know I can do this differently. And I actually talked to people who were pretty established in the elder care. And I talked to them about what I did and how I did it. And it was interesting because the old guard asked me pretty much, how are you going to make money doing this? Who's going to pay you? Who's going to pay you to like help the daughters? Who's going to pay you to, to manage all this stuff? And I was like, and that's where I figured out they don't see a value in what I do. They don't see a value in supporting families, getting them to the resources and just kind of that coaching and counseling that I do.
Well, and I think, right. And I also think it wasn't because they were mad or mean or
no.
Right? They were following such an established path. So you may or may not know the answer to this question.
Mm-hmm.
I have a really weird answer to this question myself. How did you know to trust yourself? How did you know going against a profession that is so well established,
Mm-hmm.
right? The paths are established in the legal profession. There's having coached several lawyers, there's the whole, well, that's how lawyers work,
Mm-hmm.
is so ingrained, right?
Yeah.
How did you know what made you, what in your past, what in XYZ experiences let you trust yourself when everybody who quote unquote knew better told
Mm-hmm.
you were wrong?
That's a really interesting question. In some ways, people, it's weird. People think attorneys have all the answers and are very smart. A lot of them are not very emotionally intelligent, unfortunately, and really they haven't been where their clients are. So I think just having had that experience and knowing that there was a need in the market, and also knowing other attorneys who I had pretty nice lifestyles and were very successful, that I realized weren't filling this niche, or quite frankly, weren't as smart or as inventive as a business person as I was.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's dumb luck. Sometimes it's the connections that you have. I didn't have the connections. I didn't come from Chicago. So I made the connections.
Yeah.
I got across the table at Starbucks with the right people.
And that
we're
was the same way,
intentional.
as someone who, with my clients, the number one thing I teach is marketing and messaging. How that's like where we start, because you need to be good at sales, but if you don't ever get to talk to anybody, it really doesn't matter, right? For me, it starts with marketing, and I did the same thing that you did. I've done it twice myself in a row. I've helped countless other clients do it. Businesses grow through relationships in other businesses. I've done it twice. I know you've done it, where starting out, network. And when you say you had 6 months, twice now, I've gotten a business to 6 figures in 12 months. Yeah. And my primary marketing tactic was networking.
Yeah.
Meet the people.
Yeah. And mindset too. I mean, I remember one time walking to the metro, just having one of those bad, like, why am I doing all these coffees? Like, what am I doing? Maybe I should get a job. And all those coffees. I drank so much coffee. I lived on bananas and coffees. But I remember consciously walking to the train one day and just being like, I'm a successful businesswoman. I'm going to say that. I'm going to fake it till you make it. This is the thing. The people out there that seem like they know what they're doing. And that's what I mean about the attorneys, that I was like, I think I know a little bit more about this market, a little bit more about the clientele than you do, and you're killing it. So I know that I can fill any gaps here, but I remember consciously, I'm like walking for 2 or 3 blocks and just being like, you're a successful businesswoman. You're a successful buesswoman. You're just going to say that till it gets through your skull, because that I was, and
it's literally, as funny as it is, not funny, funny, but odd. You literally have to brainwash yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, completely. It's
literally have to brainwash yourself, indoctrinate yourself. You're up against XYZ years of preconceived notions and stories you were told, and you literally have to use brainwashing techniques to help until you believe it.
Yeah. And then you have those sparks of energy, or sparks where it flows. And I would be second guessing, like, can I do this, and how hard it is, and I don't know the judges, and there's so many legal forms, and I got to learn so much. But then I would get on the phone with a daughter who was talking about her mom, and it was like, I'm like, this is where I belong. So even if you spend like 90% of your day, you feel like you're flailing around, you're going to have that 10% or whatever, and then hopefully it becomes your 90%, that it just flows, and you're just like, this is where I belong. I built this like nest for myself, and this is where I belong.
Well, and the other thing that you did, okay, so you got pushed off the cliff, you saw a need, you took your credentials and your personal experience to trust yourself, and you stuck with it. And the other thing that I know you did is you consistently were dedicated to a unbelievably high level of service. Yes. Like, hands down. And this is one of the things I say, my litmus test for my business is, am I of service? Is my marketing of service? That's why in my marketing efforts, I give away as much free stuff as I can, because my marketing is of service. My sales conversations, and I know from experience with you, you're the same way. Even if you say no to me, our sales conversation, you will learn something you didn't know before.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can, in my opinion, at least for women, and some men, I think you can only give that ridiculously high level of service when you're just that tied to what it is that you do.
And I'm solution driven. So I'm tenacious. Like, if you want an answer, I'm going to get you an answer. And I don't want to attorney bash, but what attorneys do is kind of seeking out problems, or seeking out, keeping people in crisis. One of the things that I try to do is I seek out solutions, and I just try to get answers for people. And I'm tenacious about that.
You say tenacious, and how can we solve this problem? And where I'm going to go with this. It's like, how creative do we have to get?
Yes.
In order to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And the one client we worked with together was not going to make safe decisions for herself without just massive intervention. And an amazing family, right? An amazing family, an amazing extended family who took a train halfway across the country. Took a train halfway across the country to help a woman and her cat,
Sparkles
the cat,
Sparkles the cat.
move from a condo where she was on her own downtown to
Yeah.
a family environment where she was going to be safe. And I don't know which part was more difficult, the fact that Sparkles was probably worse off than the client physically and health wise, or the fact that the entire family was allergic to Sparkles and was now going to be spending 15 hours in a van.
Yeah. Sparkles. So we do extraordinary things for people that we love, but no, that case was great because, it was one of those things where, again, it was flow. It it came together. And one of the things is, like you said, it was a woman who didn't want to make smart choices for herself, but she felt she had an advocate. She felt she had a voice, especially that generation, the greatest generation. And I sat down with her and I went through the numbers with her, and she wanted to go home, She was adamant. Her family thought, and they were right, that she'd be much better off in assisted living in Iowa and how to navigate that.
Where they could be with her.
Yeah.
And this was an amazing, and that's something I think, not just for working with aging parents, not just working with aging clients, but don't ever underestimate how hard it is to give up agency over yourself, and how important it is to maintain agency over yourself when you're thinking about your clients and you're going, why don't they just do what I tell them to do? Well, they're in charge of them.
Yeah.
And how do you help them through it, not bash them into submission?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So many people make decisions for seniors based on bullying or just not telling them and just making decisions. And we talked about this before. So many people leave their house in an ambulance and they never go home and they never see their stuff. They never go through that closure. It's really, I find that to be very insulting and unfair. And it happens primarily to women because women are living longer and some of them are single.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. So that's really hard. So I try is giving them a voice. And that's the thing, grandma doesn't have to be 100% there. She doesn't have to be able to balance the checkbook. She doesn't have to be able to look at the medical records and understand them or, hire the home care agency, but she does have a right to a voice and she does have a right to an opinion as to what happens to her and how she lives for the rest of her life. And
a right to some compassion.
Yeah. And some understanding. And like I said, especially the greatest generation, I think the baby boomers will be a little bit more difficult. They will go kicking and screaming into the night. But, a lot of people, if you sit down, unfortunately, so much of how you age in this country is numbers. It's money. And that's the thing. And and if you actually sit down with people, and I've had a couple cases where, mom wanted to go home. And sometimes we did the experiment of having mom go home for a little bit, and it was very expensive. But it's her money. And so let's spend it on mom. And then, it doesn't always work out, but we gave it a shot. And that's what I think. And mentally, I think that's mentally and emotionally, that's only fair to her. But that's the kind of creative thinking that as long as I believe that they're going to be safe, I'm willing to give it a shot.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
Well, and now that I'm hearing you say that, so I always tell the story of working with clients about helping them downsize, moving up from a 5-bedroom house into a 1-bedroom apartment and never saying no.
Yeah.
Never saying no. You can't bring that with you. And instead, and it takes longer, is, okay, well, here's the floor plan. This is what you've already chosen. Where will that go? And letting them get there themselves. And truthfully, I think it's made me a better coach because if I just go around telling people what to do, that creates a situation where they're dependent upon me to make their decisions for them. And half of what I want to do for people is, there's some consulting aspect to it because of the marketing background and the business building background. But where can you, rather than telling someone what to do, rather than telling them yes, no, help them get there themselves? Yeah.
I mean, that's really hard. I mean, sometimes it's just giving them the facts and then guiding them to the right decision. And that's what happened in the case that we had. The woman was adamant she wanted to go home. And I said, okay, let's look at your assets.
Well, and she had that step down living room. So
So she would have had to have caregivers with her 24 hours a day. She couldn't get to the bathroom without,
Right.
or the kitchen and all that. So, I mean, I looked at the numbers and I said, you can go home today. I'll support you in that, but you have enough money for about 9 months. And then you go to Medicaid nursing home. So what do you want to do?
Right.
And it wasn't a hard, now, Lord knows what I would have done had she say, okay, let's do that. Okay. But, might have had a little kept talking a little bit more, but, I mean, that's the kind of thing. It's like, she felt like, and whether or not I was a little persuasive in the way I, coined it. I mean, would she go to a Medicaid nursing? I mean, that sounds like a really horrible thing.
Right.
Sometimes those places are not the worst thing in the world, but at the end of the day, I think that, if you present people with choices, and I think they want to be heard, they want to go through the process, I think that's just so important. It's so important that we have that respect and give seniors and the dignity and the daughters and have them be heard. Sometimes a lot of what I do is just, mediation, and just try to get people. I mean, I'm not always successful. I mean, people are human, but
Right.
try to at least I had a chance to say it, whether or not,
Yeah, it's hard to resolve other people's relationships at that point. So in your own entrepreneurial journey, let's talk about that for a little, because so many of my audience is entrepreneurs and they learn from one of my goals is to lessen the learning curve for people.
Yeah.
What have you tried in terms of business growth and business strategy that just has not worked? I always say, where do we start, right?
Oh my goodness.
Just from that side of your experience, what have you learned growing as a business owner?
Oh, I was just sitting here thinking of all the wonderful things that I did that I could give advice for. What did not work? Not listening to my business coach one time, who told me we worked out this very elaborate interview process.
Oh,
and that, and the steps that we take and everything. And so much of what I've done in my business is just follow your gut. Like, I know, because I've been there. I've been the caregiver daughter, and I didn't follow that process at least a couple times. She caught me the second time. Now I'm in lockdown. In that, just following my gut a little bit too much about who to bring into the team. And then probably also in their defense, not really, not anticipating how much training and support I would have had to give them. Like, don't wait until you're slammed with work before you decide to hire. You make sure you have that buffer to really hire somebody, but, and make it don't always, I mean, I guess there's something to be said for your gut, but, also making a little bit more of a slower decision when you're hiring and when you're growing your business.
And team is one of those things, kind of like coaching. You don't make the money to get the coaching, you get the coaching in order to make the money. You don't grow your business so you can hire the team. You hire the team so you can grow your business. The cart and the horse thing. And then the other thing I say is your gut's okay, but your feelings will lie to you.
Yeah.
Your feelings will lie to you. And I think entrepreneurs, I think I read this, I think it was in a Darren Hardy book. We are horrible at hiring, especially when we're very excited about our businesses, because then if other people are excited about our businesses, we like them. And I don't know about you, but the last thing my business needs is another me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. And that was also something my business coach said. She's so much like me. And she's like, oh,
this is not a good
disaster. Because there'll be two people doing, wanting to do all the stuff. I need somebody to just sit down and bang out the work, Right. So that was.
So conversely, since you did your prep work, what are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Well, I built a huge network of people. I mean, I met in the beginning, I will tell you, and I think I did a great job of, I took, met with a ton of people. I didn't say no to anybody because, everybody's got a grandma, everybody's got an aunt they're worried about. So it wasn't so much, and not seeing it that way. Like, how can I get something out of this meeting? Is this the right person? Like who's can they give me clients? But I took a bunch of meetings. I introduced those people to a bunch of people that for my meeting. And I created this energy, and I was, this idea that you're going to have coffee with me, but I'm going to introduce you to 5 people. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to sit at that coffee and you're going to be like, how did we meet? Oh yeah. Kate Curler. Oh my gosh. Isn't she great? And so then people remember, and that energy flows forward, whether it's you're paying it forward or just, people, the best people in the room are talking about you. That's powerful. That's very, very powerful.
I absolutely agree. I cannot emphasize enough the fact, and you did the same thing I did. Yeah. I made referring business and referring introductions just as important as growing my own business.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that I will go 2 coffees in a row and not introduce somebody to somebody.
Yeah. That's my goal. I mean, I brought a little notebook and I would take notes. And sometimes that would be just because the sheer volume of it. If you're meeting with a bunch of people
Right.
and I wanted to do a follow-up email, and I think that also matters too when somebody gives you a referral. People, I have a folder, my desk, people give me a referral. I will check in like 3 weeks later and be like, the person didn't call me. Do you want me to do follow-up? I don't want it. I don't, especially in what I do, it's so emotional. It's so important. You don't want to feel like one of your referrals just like went off into space,
Right.
or somebody got too busy, or they didn't bother. They went on spring break with their kids and didn't bother to do it. I make sure that people know that I take it seriously, every single connection.
And it's really not that much work.
No.
And it is amazing how well your business can do if you just answer the emails. I was going to say answer your phone. Nobody really answers their phone anymore. I don't phone either. I live in constant fear of accidentally like changing the lecture company we use if I answer some random call, right? Because it's also weird now. But following up.
Yeah.
Make it just a habity process.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what can happen. One of the pieces of advice that I got is you don't get the business you deserve, you get the business you ask for.
Oh, interesting.
And right. And I really took that to heart, not just in getting the nerve to ask for the sale, but what else can I do to cultivate the business?
Yeah.
Right. People aren't just going to come up to you because you're you. Yeah. What can I do to proactively cultivate a relationship, cultivate a business, cultivate my own clients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you get to have those moments where your enthusiasm for your business. Because I remember people would tell me their business ideas. They'd be like, oh my gosh, like I'm so, and they would just be like, what is she excited about? You just met me. But it's just, I would try to like creatively think about, and especially people came to me with business ideas, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And they were like, are you sure? And they would, and I, other people have said, I'm not sure anybody will pay for that. I'm like, I'm telling you right now, there's a need in the market. Let me introduce you to the 3 or 4 people that I know. And just, it wasn't put on. I mean, it really is. I mean, I think I feel like I've won the life lotto. Like I get to do this thing. Like, I mean, I took probably what was one of the crappiest experiences of my life and turned it into a mission, and I get to live that every day, but I love it. And I get to hang out with people like you. I have tons of good energy, like I get to have fun. Like I decide. And it's not a job that I want to, necessarily get away from or vacation. I mean, I probably should take more vacations, but I just feel like I just feel so blessed to be able to do what I do. And I feel like I genuinely help people but it's the people that I've met along the way,
100%, 100 million.
And if you're not surrounded by people that inspire you and are giving you that energy, then pivot a little bit and ask for some introductions. You got to put it out there.
Yeah. And I think that's another thing that you've done very well, and I've enjoyed as well, is who am I surrounding myself with? And when I think about, and this was years ago, so I can only imagine what you're doing now. When I think about who we used to team up with, everyone was of high service, of high integrity. How can I help? Collaboration over competition. And then, especially as an entrepreneur, when you're walking to the metro by yourself, you don't feel so lonely.
Yeah.
You don't feel so lonely. So if people want to continue this conversation, whether it's about growing your amazing law firm, but also how you can help families with aging parents go through the horrifying legalities and non-legalities of that process, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, I would go ahead and send me an email. It's a KCurler, KCURLER @curlerlaw.com. You can also check out my website, curlerlaw.com, which tells a little bit about my personal story, and it has a picture of me and my parents. Make sure to use that. And phone number is 312-952-1077. Like you, I don't always pick up on I'm usually in court in the mornings, but I definitely will get back to you, and I definitely will see if I can help. I mean, there has to be, I believe there's a solution to every problem. So no matter how it feels, there's definitely some resource out there. There's somebody that can help, and somewhere we can kind of figure it out. Just give you direction, even if it means I just listen for 10 or 15 minutes and try to give you somebody else's phone number or some legal services.
Awesome. Well, thank you sharing not just your personal entrepreneurial journey, but also the types of things that you do, because I imagine that would inspire somebody to go, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You can look at this a different way.
Yeah.
And get the help. So thank you so much for joining me. I always love hanging out with you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity too. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.